Live from the White Tower in Tarvalon, this is Derailed Trains of Thought. All right, Tim, this is a pretty nice place, but I feel a little out of place.
We're not in a nunnery, are we? Like,
No,
I'm only seeing women around here.
If my suspicions are correct, this is a place that's not nunnery by any means. And if they see us kind of sneaking around and looking suspicious, they will put us to work or kick us out or worse.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, I think it's best to lay low.
Well, I mean, they're dressed nice and kind of multicolored.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Stay away from the red ones.
Okay.
Yes.
Trust
me.
What about the green ones?
Stay away from them too.
Oh, okay.
Different reason.
Okay.
Yes.
I will take your word on it.
Yes. But again, this corner. The nice thing is they won't probably think don't let them see our recording devices. They might think they're terrestrial.
Huh?
Yeah, never mind then. Okay, so Tim.
So wait, are they superstitious?
They will want to test it to see its abilities.
Oh, okay. But we can't let them do that because we got a podcast.
Exactly. Episode number 70 something.
73.
All right.
Yay!
Woohoo!
That's
The first of 2017.
That is. That makes it momentous.
Yes.
We'll have to come up with something momentous for every episode of 2017.
I think that we should. Like, this is the first time
in February. This time in January, but yes.
Nice.
Welcome, dear listener.
Yes, this is Nick.
And this is Tim.
And should we go and get started with our story school?
Let's do it.
By the time this comes out, it will be a little bit after the inauguration.
Yay, a day of rejoicing for everyone in America.
Or something. In case, because we're sure that people will want to talk it ad nauseum, we will discuss politics today.
Yeah, we're tempting fate here a little bit, I think. America's been kind of had its fill of politics lately.
Exactly. But,
I mean, some depending on who you talk to.
Everyone's sick of some sort of politics.
Okay, there you go.
But anyways, we're not talking about real life politics, because that would just be depressing. We're instead talking about how politics is used in a story.
Because, hello, this is Derailed Trains of Thought. That's what we do.
Exactly. So, I guess the first thing to say is that sometimes when we talk about politics as a conflict, people would be like, boring. I mean, I don't think everyone thinks that, but I think that's some people's gut reaction. They'd rather see swords and punches and guns and chases than people talking.
Yeah, and I think having politics in stories, it all depends on how it's presented and how people will go for it. I mean, if you think on the surface level, it makes perfect sense why political intrigue is a thing, you know, and why it makes for good storytelling, because storytelling at its heart is about conflict. And there's plenty of that in political maneuvering.
Well, and I think the nice thing about the upside to politics as a conflict device is that it really encapsulates in usually a person or two the ideas of entire culture. Like if you want to do idea versus idea, politics is a great vehicle for doing it. It's hard to do idea versus idea when you have like two guys fighting in loincloth or something like that.
If you're like a simple revenge story or it's all about the romance or something like that, it's not the ideal platform for deep thoughts about what nations' responsibilities are.
Yeah, so you have, science fiction does this all the time. That's our wheelhouse largely. But you got Star Trek and some Star Wars and Babylon 5 where usually there's one or two people, the ambassadors or whatever, that kind of represent the values of a certain people.
Mm-hmm. And even if you wanted to go into fantasy before that, you've got kings and princes and queens and all the maneuverings of the royal court. And there's something in most political stories, and there's exceptions I'm sure we'll get into, but there's definitely something about the people in charge. Yeah. Just aside from the whole battle of ideas thing, dealing with the people in charge, you get bigger consequences for all the actions that are involved.
And it's interesting because some ways the way to keep a king from using his power, you have other people put weight that's not physical.
That's true.
Like, I'll withhold my daughter, or I won't give you my taxation, or that it's a way of it's a power struggle, but it's a much more subtle one in many ways.
Yeah, when you're dealing with like other dukes, and then it's like, oh, this could start a war, or things like that.
I mean, Stormlight Archive, the Brandon Sanderson's new big thing has been going through. There's a decent amount of politics where people kind of fighting for who's going to be in control of this war. And there's this society, the Alethi, where basically all the dukes kind of have their, not dukes, but high princes. They all do their own way of trying to get the power. There's a lot of this power struggle back and forth. There's this one guy who's, so that's part of the story, is this like, but the unsettledness between the high princes is also something that the king wants to unify them, but they all have their own thing. So there's that tension, which is one of many conflicts going on.
Sure.
And that's what seems to be one of the main political things sometimes, is like, let's bring order to all these various...
order to chaos.
Yeah.
Bring order to the galaxy.
Exactly. I mean, that was certainly it in Babylon 5. Got all these crazy races, and they've got to all agree on something. Peace. Peace. Peace as a...
As a MacGuffin.
As a MacGuffin, yeah, exactly. Has two ways. You have war. You can either battle it out, which is sometimes, but a lot of times on the home front, peace is won by assuaging people, buying people, or convincing people.
Or can you maintain the peace to prevent going into the war?
And I always find the kind of that sort of story fascinating, because it's like, how do you deal with the aftermath? It's one thing to go and kill the enemy king. It's another thing to say, hey, we're going to make his people not hate me forever.
It's true. So that's sort of our big picture of what some of the neat things about it. But let's talk a little bit about those, how you convince your audience, in a sense, that this stuff is going to wind up being interesting.
Okay.
Because I was thinking about what you talked about earlier with, like, people hear politics and they don't really want to get into that in their stories.
Yeah.
I think an interesting picture of this is Star Wars, actually. Because you think about Episode 1.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the wrong way to introduce politics too, because people say Star Wars has no business having politics in it, and I would disagree, because I think even if you go back and look at the first novelization of Star Wars, like the prologue, it describes the Old Republic in ways that we later saw.
Well, and then the role of politics in the prequels is to show the disintegration of the ideal of the Republic.
Yeah, I agree. I do think probably it didn't help, though, that it was kind of brought in so sort of suddenly. Like, they were sort of like the opening crawl. You have the stuff about trade federations and blockades, and what the heck is a legal blockade anyway? Yeah. And so you're kind of dropped into the middle of all this. And I think that usually hurts.
I can see that.
Stories, because like I was thinking too about Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah,
they do some of this sort of stuff where they just kind of occasionally they'll cut away to a scene with the evil empire and some of the power struggles in there, and I usually found those scenes kind of forgettable, honestly, because it didn't have a strong connection to your main characters.
And I think the way to make politics works is that obviously politics brings in the whole system or culture of whatever, but it needs to be centered in a person you care about.
Yeah,
and when they do it well, like, this person is talking for all the Minbari, but you like Delenn, if you're talking about in 5 or in Star Wars, when it makes more sense when Amidala's up there sometimes after you've got to know Amidala. Yeah. Because she's talking for her country, and she's speaking not just for herself, but for her planet, but you care about it because she's her and not because she's some nameless person.
Right. Yeah. I think the Galactic Senate scenes are much stronger in Episode 3 than they would be in Episode 1. I mean, there's that quote from Episode 3 that everyone likes to quote. This is how democracy dies, the thunderous applause. Yeah. Which means something outside of the context of Star Wars. Yeah. That you can get kind of a political idea of that. Now, some people have pointed out it's a bit vague, like either side can sort of point to it. But it does say something that, when freedoms are lost, it's because you are making someone happy.
Okay, Battlestar Galactica. The main political issue a lot of times is that it's between the civilian government and the military. Mm-hmm. But you like people on both sides, so when they have this struggle, like, we need to keep us safe, we need to be in charge, and the civilian is like, no, but this is our government, and how we need to run things. It's a real conflict, not just because they both have good points, but because both the characters are interesting and intriguing, or
you've grown to care about the characters, but you can also see both sides of the argument.
And arguments like that too, well, it's in this science fiction realm, have analogy or application in real world stuff. You know, people think about, wait, do we want things forced or do we want it voted on? You know, that there's that, those tensions that are semi-universal, at least in a Western world.
Yeah. We talked in our aliens episode about how a lot of these alien fantasy races are sort of a stand-in for real world ideas and, you know, agendas in a sense. It's one thing to just have that representation, but then, you know, the political side of it is seeing them sort of hash it out.
A really good modern, like very recent example is The Crown, the 10 episodes that I watched.
Okay.
It's British monarchy, so it's a different setup.
And you're now you're going to a historical like setting though.
Like real, like you have actual queens and prime ministers, you know, Churchill's in it. And, you know, there's one of the most memorable for me is the Queen's sister wants to marry a divorced man.
Okay.
The Queen is supposed to represent the Church of England, which does not allow divorce. Henry VIII and all that, you know, back in the day. So there's this real tension between she wants to see her sister happy, but she's the crown. So like in one person, you have kind of these two ideals fighting with each other.
Okay.
And you also have, in the context of the show, the idea that, well, culture is moving forward. You know, things are more acceptable than they used to be, but can the Queen move forward or should she not because she's
the Queen?
Because she's the Queen.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really good interrelation between the personal person and the position in The Crown. The Crown, if you have not watched, is very good and deserved the Golden Globe it won.
Was it a BBC show or
no, Netflix original?
Oh, Netflix original. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but anyways, very a very subtle way sometimes of playing between the politics and the person. And Churchill has some of this stuff because he's trying to keep power, but he's getting old and people like him, but it's a new generation. You know, there's a lot of this intersection between what politics demands and what culture demands and what personhood demands.
Cool.
So it's good stuff.
Nice. Yeah, like the historical aspect that can add a whole nother feature to it.
Or you watched a lot of West Wing.
Well,
right?
I've watched bits and pieces. My parents have watched a lot of West Wing, which is a remarkable thing. I think it's one of the few times Aaron Sorkin was able to do a very balanced show.
He's very good at, in his shows, he's very good at being able to show all sides of things.
Well, sometimes I've heard of some cases where
I haven't seen much of
that lean
stuff.
even more liberal. But yeah, in West Wing, at the very least, it sounds like he did a very good job at it. You know, even though the people in the White House in that show, it's a Democrat White House.
Yeah.
They liked to be the opposite of what the current administration was at the time. I think somewhat convenient timing that they decided to end the show right when like a Democrat was about to be elected. But anyway, so even though they, probably disagree, my parents would disagree with some issues. They said you love the characters, you sort of, and like you said, he was able to show the
with
other
both
side.
sides.
Yeah.
And I think that's important in politics too. There's two ways to do it. If you're going to do a more realistic politics, you've got to be honest with both sides. Mm-hmm. If you're going to do more of the kind of fancy bad versus good, you can have like the evil king and the noble, Robin Hood sort of deal.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. But I think, there is this sort of discussion where it's two sides that are valid points, but you're, for whatever reason, pushing one side wins out. And maybe it's not always the best side. It's just what the characters think or what works for the world or what moves the conflict or...
In the best, I think that's the best way to do like modern political stuff. I don't know that everyone does it perfectly. I mean, you and I are a little out of touch here because we can't talk about House of Cards, which I guess is a big Netflix
Zach's
show.
Watched it. He does, yeah. Anyways,
so yeah, there's that. I've watched a little bit of Designated Survivor.
Oh yeah.
I fell behind last season, so I've only seen like the first 3 or 4 episodes. I'm curious to see where they go with it because it is another avenue where you can explore some, it's a big what if, essentially. Like, if you don't know the concepts, Jack Bauer, Kiefer Sutherland, was the designated survivor after the State of the Union address, which gets bombed and everyone died. President, Congress, they're all dead. And so he becomes the new president. And it deals with some of these sorts of issues that people probably have wondered in our very, conflicted times about like, well, who really has the power? How much can the president actually do with his executive orders and stuff like that? And I don't know that... Oh, the last episode I saw where he basically conned the governor of Michigan to coming so he could arrest him. He conned him to come to D.C. because he was like causing trouble and just wasn't playing ball. And anyway, it raises some interesting issues, and I was maybe curious about what direction politically the show would go in. But it's I mean, that's an extreme situation type of show, so it's hard to say.
Or any Tom Clancy book. I haven't read most of them, but I mean, those are all basically like kind of what ifs, but in a very realistic.
Like, this could happen, and like what would happen if this happened?
And some of the stuff he wrote could happen, kind of later on did happen. Like in the one before Executive Order is the one I read, which was the one where Jack Ryan becomes president because in the previous book, a plane ran into the Capitol and killed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Exactly. Yeah. But Tom Clancy does. You know, my dad had read some of them. Like there's one called The Bear and the Dragon, which is about Russia and China, and so you know, some people do a really good job of sort of extrapolating realistic things off of this stuff. I can't, but
I think I mentioned to you. This may have been way back a long time ago on the podcast. The movie Wag the Dog. That one is a political satire, actually, where in order to distract the public essentially from a presidential sex scandal, his public relations people basically engineer a fake war, a war that doesn't actually happen, but for all the American people know happens, like overseas, and he gets everyone all riled up about this thing. And it's about like him working with a Hollywood producer to manufacture the thing.
Interesting. I remember seeing previews way back when.
Yeah. What's funny, you know, talk about paralleling real life. It happened sometime like during the Clinton administration, and people said some of his, you know, military strikes at that time were also sort of distractions. So it was, kind of eerie the way life imitates art sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, so there's another what if or a kind of a farcical sort of look at our whole presidential process. Yeah. So there's a way to use politics, not just in the conflict sense, but in like examining of real life.
Yeah, and you know, if you do a really good one, like some people say, oh, it's boring, they just talk, but there's very compelling movies that are basically just people talking. I mean, a lot of old movies are basically that. I mean, we live in an era now where, but like, I was trying to think of good political movies seen recently, but like Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's basically about trying to decide that one bill they were passing, right? A lot of it?
A lot of it, yeah. That's true. I forgot that a lot of it was, I was thinking in my head, it was mostly historical, biographical.
I mean, it does help that Lincoln's very, very. I mean, it helps that you have you anchored a very interesting character.
Yeah, but I forgot that they centered that movie on a particular bill passage that they were trying to get through.
And I never watched all of Samuel Adams, that miniseries. You ever watch all that?
Oh yeah,
but I think that's a lot of that sort of, you know. Yeah, it's him as a character.
Was it Samuel Adams or John Adams?
Oh, sorry, John Adams. No, his cousin Samuel Adams.
A miniseries on Samuel Adams would probably be a lot more fiery.
Yes, John Adams. But again, they work because they're attached to a very interesting person. Mm-hmm. Again, that's how, you know, just having people talk about ideas doesn't work. But you attach an idea to a face and attach an idea to a culture. In real life, they say, you know, politics is downstream from culture. So for a lot of times, the political battle is just an expression of, you know, man versus culture. Yeah. You know that's because it's hard to do man versus culture.
That's true.
In lots of ways.
Yeah, and I think that is another.
And this is what Robin Hood is: man versus government, man versus culture.
Yeah, because I was thinking another case of them sort of setting up a character and then kind of exploring the political ramifications of it. Avatar: Last Airbender. Mm-hmm. You know, think about it. All you need to know is, for start, there's a Fire Nation. They've kind of taken over the setup. That's all you need. Then there's this prince, that guy that's chasing our heroes. Then you get to peel back the curtain and say, well, this prince, he's got his own father issues, and then you know, 2 seasons later you find out, well, this war started because of, you know, these people involved in this and so forth and so on. So, but to just start off with, well, let me tell you about this royal family and their family issues. You're like, wait a minute, why should I care about all this stuff?
Of course,
you don't want to it's like politics is sort of like exposition. You can't front load it.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. And we've been talking about a lot about shows that it's heavy in politics, but there's also politics as basically your inciting incident. I was thinking X-Men movies. Basically, some guy comes in like, let's register to them, or let's do something governmentally to them. So, and then the whole movie starts, and it's all about fighting, and and then you just normal movie, but it's the kind of the starting incident. I mean, the original in A New Hope, part of the political aspects, basically like, I'll tell the Senate about you. We've disbanded the Senate, and that's it's
all
just
there is,
it's a background, but it gives a sense that there were powers trying to work, but it just gets the conflict started.
There's an interesting contrast there. So that's that A New Hope a bit where they just kind of drop these little shells that they kind of drop you into the middle of it. I guess in some ways some people try to make that excuse for, or maybe George made that excuse for Phantom Menace, just dropping you in the middle of stuff. But I think that was overload. What if you could go too much the other way? In this case, now I'm thinking The Force Awakens, where I've argued that I don't think they gave you enough political insights into what was going on between, like, who the heck is there an actual republic now? Who the heck is where the
but you need a context for who's in politics. Is basically who has power in a structure. Mm-hmm. And
you don't really need much even in Force Awakens.
But you need a little bit more would have been very helpful.
Yeah.
Because especially after Return of the Jedi, where the last thing you really knew was
everything was right with the world.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Somehow we figured there was some Republic and whatever, but then there's all these other stuff running around, and we have no context for the power struggle, because politics is power.
Yeah.
And you want to know who has and who doesn't, and
and I mean, you could get enough to get by, but it felt like a piece of the world was missing.
I agree on that one.
Missing.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And it's interesting in like Rogue, when we're talking about Star Wars, Rogue One, you get a decent amount of...
We'll cover all the Star Wars movies by the time we're done.
Empire Strikes Back doesn't have that much politics in it. Well, okay, so Londo is trying to make sure the Empire stays out of his business.
Literally.
Exactly. But Rogue One is an interesting because we talked about it on our sidetrack, but we've got kind of this lower level politics going on, between Krennic and... Internal affairs, like the power struggle on both sides. Because that's really where a lot of conflict politics come. Who is going to end up with the power?
Yeah.
Because someone's got to.
Yeah.
But is it going to be this guy or that guy? Who's going to win?
And that's true for no matter what sort of governmental setting you're in, whether it's the royal court or the staff cabinet.
Yeah, and it's always, and again, I think that's how it becomes fascinating, because that's where the conflict is really. It's the ideas, but it's also just who wins. Yeah, that's who we want to know. Does a good guy win? And the good guy is whoever you agree with.
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah.
So, I mean, generally, maybe a side area, and you can tell if this would maybe be legal battles. It's kind of I don't know, it's not quite politics, but it doesn't exist outside of politics.
There's some of that. I think it depends on the
courtroom
story.
dramas.
Yeah, some of your courtroom dramas. I mean, not necessarily like your murder trial stories.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say.
I'm thinking like Few Good Men, Sorkin.
Yeah, or first thing I thought of was A Time to Kill.
I haven't seen that.
Well, I guess I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch.
But sometimes because the laws,
there's some racial issues in that one. So maybe that's
because sometimes the laws are what exist, and you're fighting against. I guess maybe it's not politics, but another version that you versus culture.
Yeah, it's definitely the civic sphere, the public sphere. I guess is a better way to determine.
Yeah, you're down from the kings and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, and we've talked a lot about the people in power, but there are a few stories about the political structure from the everyday man.
Yeah, have you seen? It's not Everyday Man. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
I have. It's been a long time.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. I keep thinking when it was our topic, I'm like, I really need to watch that movie.
No, I mean that is a very classic example of an American. I mean, it's the American story of average guy who gets elected and then winds up taking on big. And in that story, he's basically against unions and stuff like that.
And there's stories running around like that of the lawyer who takes on the big whatever company is the enemy in this case.
Yeah, or like. Aaron Brockovich?
Yeah, like that. Yeah,
that sort of thing.
And it's like a lower level version of politics.
kind of ground level in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Mr. Smith Goes to Washington
is the middle level.
Kind of mid level. But those type of stories, definitely there's some political undertones in there, even if it's not
because usually it's the repercussions of what happens after
or where we are in society and how
there's like a snapshot of you got some of these like civil rights sort of movies sometimes.
Yeah, and these things can be, the more you get, I think, closer to the actual issues is where it gets very tricky, actually. In some ways, I think the higher ups, the higher up in the government is a little safer area to talk about. When you get into specifics, when your story really is about specific issues, then you're going to have a more divisive story. About because who believes, who agrees with the filmmaker and who doesn't,
as opposed to being ideas
or the novelist
or general, as opposed to being principles that people can defend or not defend. It becomes specific issues, and that's just more divisive.
Yeah,
I mean, it might be your point, but it's not as universally applicable.
And it's much like the same problem with Christian films. If your story is more about trying to convey an idea or have a certain, agenda to it, then it's less of a story and more propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've had that issue. We've had a podcast about propaganda before.
Yeah. Cool. So did we miss anything?
That's most of my big points. Yeah.
So I don't think it's something to shy away from, but I think it's like most of the topics we cover, it's something that has to be handled in the right way.
Yeah, I think you attach it to really compelling characters and, ideas that people can root for or root against if you want to make it anti.
I mean, I guess if you want to be from a very, like we talked in our messages episode, if you want to have a very specific point of view, understand that you're going to have a limited audience because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to go for your Ayn Rands and all that kind of
stuff. Yeah, exactly. Ayn Rand's very it's just political.
But politics in a story doesn't have to be that.
No. I guess that'll be the end of our story school, so we'll go to our first soundtrack. I was thinking this, and I'm like, what video games have politics? I knew there were one, but again, I'm way out of the loop on new stuff, and I did a little thing, and I was reminded of Pseudokin, which is this great series. I only played the first one for PlayStation, but it's...
So it may not be a great series, but at least the first game was good, huh?
Yeah, I've heard other... Yeah, that's true. I've heard the other one's good. Fabulous music. There's lots of, there's this rebellion, and people get killed, and then you take down some kings, and you make your whole army, and kind of... You, were, the son of a king, and then you, get this army for rebellion. It's crazy. I mean, it's a lot of big kind of...
Good times.
Good times like that. But this is called Cliff the Great Crusader. It's remixed by Trenthian, and it's quite peppy, and I think you'll enjoy it. Welcome back.
Yay!
And now we're gonna, after enjoying that wonderful song, go to What If? All right, Tim, this was your idea, so I'll let you explain this.
Oh, okay. For What If today, since we've already done something back in our 50th episode, we did a thing where we took real life politicians and put them in TV shows. So I thought, we need something different for this time. So instead, we've come up with a number of races, nationalities, etc. from pop culture.
Yep.
I think probably mostly science fiction.
Probably that's the easiest place to get most of them.
Yeah. So we're gonna draw 5 of them out of
We
the
have not
hat.
seen each other's ones. So
Names.
we have not even seen all half these names.
Right. So this will be a surprise. But these 5 races, nationalities, whatever, they're going to inhabit the same universe. And
A limited area.
yes, and we will talk about what that political landscape looks like.
On a universe like a world,
It's a good question.
like a city,
well, we didn't really talk about the parameters of this.
a neighborhood,
I was
a house, Big Brother.
let's say, for the purposes of argument, for one, they should probably all have like equal technological level.
Yeah, okay.
So one can't like run ramshot over another.
Yeah. We need a limited space to make them really work. Otherwise, they'll just live in like
Yeah, let's say a planet.
a planet. Okay, it's like some sort of.
The Hunger Games planet. Not really.
It's like a neutral. It's a neutral planet. It's
neutral
Switzerland.
planet. Okay, there you go. It's
the Switzerland
or,
planets.
like a space station for diplomats
Exactly.
and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, we're the last best hope of peace.
Yeah, something like that.
If you've never seen Babylon 5, you would enjoy this podcast 100% more.
Okay, our races are the Kree
The Kree.
from Marvel. I wondered if they'd get some, if you'd bring some your Nova readings.
Yeah, I should put in humans, but I put Kree. Yeah, I try to put one from each.
That works. All right, so then next we got Boone.
The Boov.
Boov.
Have you ever seen Home?
Home? No.
Oh,
Oh, is this that? Is this
The
that
cartoon with-
cartoon movie?
yeah.
Okay, I know absolutely nothing about these people.
the
so.
Boov are ridiculous, and they're cowardly, and they tend to collect. They tend to terraform planets for their own purposes.
Okay, how big are they? Are they?
They're like child size.
Okay, that's the thing. I realize we probably should explain some of these for people who don't know them.
Yeah.
So, who are the Kree?
The Kree are a alien race from Marvel Universe. They're Green Ronin. The Accuser is a Kree. They
From Guardians of the Galaxy.
From Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
They tend to be kind of warlike, but not as warlike as the Skrull. The Skrull are even more warlike, but
Okay.
they're a relatively advanced race that will fight and defend their area, and every once will go out and take over some stuff.
Okay. And the Boov are terraforming.
They're
merchant-
ridiculous. Their leader has a shusher, is a stick that basically you hit people with to make them stop talking. Voiced by Steve Martin, the leader. And they have these balls that like collect all the things they think are useless, which are usually things that are helpful for humans, and they just run away from their enemies. And,
Okay.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Interesting. Okay, and then we've got the Klingons.
The Klingons. Okay, Klingon and Kree would either get along well or not, depending
Yeah,
on.
because if you don't know Klingons, you're been living in a hole. But they're a very warrior-like race from Star Trek. Okay, who else we got here? Dwarves.
Dwarves. Oh, man.
As in Lord of the Rings dwarves.
Man, the Klingon. All right.
And then finally,
As long as the dwarves make the Klingon their nice fighting swords, they'll be happy.
yeah, Vulcans. Oh, we got two.
Oh.
We got 2 of the Star Trek
Nice.
races. In here.
Okay.
I don't think the Vulcans are going to be at home with these other races very
No,
well.
the Vulcans are going to just be like, because we got some. I mean, the Klingons are more aggressive than not,
Yes.
and the dwarves are more belligerent.
Belligerent, yes.
They
They can be isolationists though.
Yeah.
So
And
they, depending on the circumstances, may just decide to hole up in a cave
they might
somewhere.
just hole up and people come and they'll make them stuff, and they might just be. I mean, some of this seems like the Boov. The problem with the Boov, from my understanding, they'll probably be more they interfere more than they should and cause problems without meaning to.
That could be.
Like everyone, like you can see the Klingons and the dwarves and Kree kind of having this uneasy peace. Like you stay there, I'll stay here. We'll just do our thing, and the Boov will just kind of like
come in and mess things up.
yeah,
without
they go over.
realizing
They
it.
don't care about the boundary lines or anything, and then
And Vulcans would probably be trying to deal with them the most because they realize logically the biggest troublemakers actually.
And the Booth are not particularly logical, and so it feels a little bit like if Spock had to babysit. So I can kind of see this. Okay, so we have the Vulcans babysitting the Booth.
Nice.
And then we have the Kree, the Klingons, and the dwarves. You feel like they'd be kind of like rough partners.
Yeah.
As long known made them mad.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean,
as soon as someone, if there's some grudge there, then the whole thing spirals out of control.
it becomes a big powder keg. But yeah, otherwise, I could see the dwarves having pretty good relations with either the Kree or the Klingons.
Especially if they trade weapons and stuff.
Exactly, trade weaponry and all that kind of stuff.
The Kree are a little more advanced than the rest of them, but we're giving them all equal.
I think probably the two that could be if things went wrong, I could very easily see the dwarves and the Klingons getting into a war just between themselves.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. I mean, they'd be like, that was a good war. Let's do it again in 10 years.
Yeah. It depends probably on who's in charge of the Kree at any given time.
Yeah.
But whether they would try to take advantage of the conflict or not.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and they like to do some genetic engineering on people occasionally.
Oh, do they?
Because that's where the Inhumans came from.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. The Kree are the blue people, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and the Skrull are green?
The Skrull, the shapeshifter, yeah, they're green.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just keeping my Marvel races straight.
The color helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if the Kree would I suppose which era the Kree are in, where they would try to influence some things or not. I mean, my guess is they'd probably just stick to themselves in this setup.
Probably. Yeah, especially with the Vulcans. I feel like the Vulcans would sort of kind of keep them in check.
The Vulcans will kind of be like the Jedi of this era. I mean, because they would kind of be the peacekeepers, because they're kind of mediators.
Uh-huh.
And then we have the chaotic neutral Booth.
The Booth, yeah. I can certainly see that.
So I think you'd have an easy piece with flare-ups now and then, especially between Klingons and the dwarves.
Yep.
With the Kree throwing in sometimes.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Well, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I think that summarizes that one pretty well. So let's do another grouping.
All right.
And we'll save those. I don't know.
I'll say more here in case maybe we could have these planets come to meet each other.
Possibly. All right, here's the next one. We've got Nazis.
Ooh, Nazis. This is not ending well.
Probably not. All right, next we got the Goron.
The Goron. They're the rock-eating creatures from Zelda.
Oh, okay. Are they are they in the first one?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I think they're first in Ocarina.
Are they first? Okay.
At least the first I've noticed them.
I see.
I'm playing Ocarina right now.
Gotcha.
For the first time. So.
For the first time, nice. My Zelda knowledge is very limited. I mean, I know the basics.
They like to eat rocks. They live underground. They're kind of dwarfish, but they kind of look like rocks.
Oh, okay. They eat rocks and they look like rocks.
I mean, they're brown and bulky and
okay.
Their chief at least likes music and will dance kind of crazy when he hears it. So they're relatively friendly.
Do they like rock and roll?
Oh yeah.
Okay, moving on. Next we have Moogles.
Ooh, nice. This is gonna be a fun bunch, except the Nazis.
I'm not sure what they're doing in with this mix so far.
Evil Moogles, that'd be fun. Like the run around is like.
Now see, Moogles. Moogles are like these cute, cuddly creatures from Final Fantasy games. They're usually very enterprising. They're either like merchants or stuff, or explorers,
or postal men,
or postmen. Yeah, depending on the game. They're the enterprising, cute little things.
They're they're kind of like white things with the pink wings and a little bulb on their head.
A little like giant nose or something.
Yeah.
So, all right, then this is another one of yours, the series.
This is the Sean Chan.
Say that again?
The Sean Chan.
Sean Chan.
Yes.
What's that from?
This is from Wheel of Time. Okay. I had to throw it in.
I figured.
Okay, Arthur Hawkwing takes his army across the ocean. 1,000 years later, the Sean Chan comes back. They're his descendants. And they're basically think that it's their right to conquer the world.
Oh, okay.
And they have a very kind of bizarre Eastern...
So humanoid?
Yeah, they're humans.
Okay,
they're humans.
They're so human.
Okay. But they ride like weird, like three-eyed creatures and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And flying dragonish things. But their social structure is very intricate and complicated, and very shame-based, very kind of Eastern in that way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We've got quite the... And our final race here is the Hutts.
Wow. We've got two enterprising... the Mughals might actually work for the Hutts.
In some way, it sounds bizarre because the Hutts are, of course, the gang lords, the slum leaders, giant slugs. And whereas Mughals are the most even though they're enterprising, they're also like cute and cuddly.
And they're very good generally.
Yeah, they're very good. Whereas
so
Hutts
really,
are
what
not.
you have here is that the Hutts and the Nazis are forming an alliance.
Oh, okay, I can see that. Yeah.
Because either the Nazis will do the Hutts' dirty work or vice versa. I'm not sure which.
I would lean toward Nazis are very, they have a creed. They have a very idealistic. Whereas Hutts, they just want to make a buck where
That's true. That's true. But they'll play into the underside of the Nazi system.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the Gorons and the Mughals probably work together pretty well. They're both kind of friendly, dancy sort of, fantasy creatures.
Okay.
Now Shan Chen, they're not likely to bow to anyone.
Yeah. But would they work with these other races? I mean, it sounds like you said they want to basically...
They're largely the sort of people that want to assimilate people into their culture.
Okay.
As opposed to accept other people's culture. They see kind of their mandate to spread the empire.
Okay, so I'm sort of picturing the Serchan on this continual war against the Nazis with the Hutt support. Whereas the Goron and the Mughals kind of do their own thing. They kind of support,
they'd have to basically, no pun intended, live underground.
Yeah.
I mean, because they'd want to stay out of everyone's way in many ways. Maybe they'd show up to here and there, do for freedom fighters on either side or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think they're more. They in this case be isolationist.
Okay.
I can see the Mughals just kind of being
feel like they'd show up just wherever
they'd be like kind of neutral merchants places,
Yeah.
And just in the normal, not in the upper echelons, but in the down low people. Like, hey, I'll slip
you this, and we can make a deal here.
It'd be very interesting. The Shan Chen and the Nazis against each other. Granted, the Shan Chen have magic on their side.
Yeah, I don't know what the Hutts exactly are. I mean, we said kind of equal technological ground.
Yeah. So they could have blast. I mean, the Nazis have blasters then.
Yeah, probably. It probably would become a technology versus magic sort of battle.
I mean, what would hold the Shan Chen back is that they're very good about, like, when they capture a city, like, they can make the people can like them. Like, they're pretty good occupiers.
Oh, okay.
And I think they're in some ways they'll make things better than they were. They're very efficient.
Okay.
So people may prefer being conquered by them than the Nazis.
Okay.
Because they're a little more better at assimilating people into a productive way of life.
Gotcha. Yeah, Nazis. I guess that might go a little against, now I think about the rule I said at the beginning, where the races kind of be willing to work together. Nazis are sort of Dalek-like and just wanting to take
at
over
least
stuff.
in the popular terminology. Yeah.
Yeah. So that may be a bad choice on my part.
And especially since Shan Chen, by definition, are not the Aryan race.
Yeah.
I mean, they're from across the sea. Now, maybe, I mean, they're so Eastern, maybe they could make this an easy alliance and split the world in half.
That's true. I mean, and even Nazis made their own alliances. Yeah. So
they could eventually, I could see having an uneasy peace eventually between the two sides.
Possibly.
But with this sort of virulent underworld.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
That both of them are trying to stamp out or control.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of and then you have you have two underworlds. You have the Hutts underworld, and you have the kind of the good Goron underworld.
Yeah, it's kind of a schizophrenic planet. It seems like we have between the cute and cuddly and the.
So maybe a lot of the more, maybe a lot of people escape to the Goron. Maybe that's kind of the asylum, the Mughal Goron world.
That could be. For
people who either don't want to be oppressed by the Nazis or don't agree with how the Shan Chen run things.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that one got that was a lot of battle strategy in that one. So
yeah, I threw that. I knew the Shan Chen would be a little complicated,
a little extreme.
Yes, but I wanted to be different.
All right. Yes, that is good. All right. So next one up here. All right. First off, we've got Wookiees.
Wookiees. I almost wrote Wookiees, but I did not.
And they will be sharing a place with Fraggles.
All right. Hey.
All right.
They can live in the trees together? I don't know.
No, Fraggles are underground.
Yeah,
I mean, they would venture above ground.
Yeah.
So Wookiees, of course, from Chewbacca race from Star Wars. Fraggles,
Down in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
I mean, yeah.
If you don't know that, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. Honestly. The Noldor? Oh,
Noldor.
Wow. You didn't just go elves from Middle Earth.
No.
You went specifically the Noldor because we're reading the Silmarillion.
I read the Silmarillion right now. The Noldor who want the Silmarils and are under the doom of Mandos.
Yeah.
So following Fëanor, their father.
They're a race of elves.
Yeah.
Or a faction.
They're in some ways the strongest, most noble race of elves, except they also have this tragic desire to find the gems that the Silmarils
that were stolen from them.
So they have a chip on their shoulder.
Now, trying to remind me, because Noldor were among the groups of elves that went to Valinor.
Yeah,
Valar.
Or
Some of them
Valinor.
stayed, but did all the Noldor leave?
Very nearly all of them. One of the three brothers stayed with the Talari.
Okay. All right.
Which they end up, they had the first big battle, the kinslaying, when the Noldor killed some of the Talari on that island. And
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm steeped in Middle-earth lore at the moment, audience. So
never a bad thing in my book. All right, then we got the Centauri.
Ooh, right, Centauri. If you Babylon 5, they're basically the Roman Empire.
Yeah, toward the end of the Roman Empire, essentially, where they were kind of degraded.
They're degraded. They're on the downside, but they're constantly trying to live up to their old glory.
Yeah,
which actually doesn't it kind of matches the Noldor to a certain extent,
in a bizarre way.
Yeah, I mean Noldor are a little higher. They're not as degraded, at least most of the time.
Yeah, they still have higher.
They've seen the light of
ethics.
the Valinor.
Yeah, more enlightened, I guess you could say. Okay, and then finally the Gauld.
Oh, from Stargate.
I finally remember the race from Stargate. They're like basically the main enemies, at least for the beginning part of the show.
Yeah, but there's some good ones, right? Some of the good Gaul.
Possibly.
There's
only one left in the
Let's throw it in there.
So we go ahead and throw it in there. That is Asimov robots.
Oh, the robots from with the 3 laws of robotics.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I figured just throwing robots in a little too much, so I thought I'd begin with 3 laws
specifically from those. All right, so we got Fraggles, Wookiees, Noldor, Centauri, Gauld, and Asimov robots.
Oh boy,
this is quite the melting pot.
It is. I do feel like the Noldor and the Wookiee would get along for some reason. I feel like the Wookiee are first off, they both love trees.
This is true, and the Wookiees have
a certain nobility.
They do have a certain nobility. I mean, they can be
Life Day
silly and no, they could be silly and ferocious, but they do have this sort of, at least they think they have this certain dignity about them.
So the Noldor might see him as a little. I think they would like him in the same way they like men.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
that they're less raised, but there are a lot of nobility and valiant Wookiees, and they'll fight alongside them.
Indeed. At the same time, I feel like. Well, Fraggles are an interesting thing because they're mostly isolationists themselves.
Yeah.
They stay underground.
Yeah.
They have been known though to get along with toward the end of the show they learn how to get along with some of their other races in their world.
Oh, okay.
Like I think they finally actually make friends with the Gorgs and the dudes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Toward the end of the show. So I could see them getting along very well with the Wookiees, honestly.
Yeah, I think it'd take them a while.
Yeah, probably. Yes, it would take them.
And probably, that a lot of them would stay isolationists, and there'd be ambassadors and slow amounts of them that would come out, and they'd be slow to intermingle.
Yes, I would agree with that. So
but they would certainly not cause any harm.
No, absolutely not.
The Centauri, I feel, would, out of the sense of pride, would want to be the rulers.
I feel like I think that's true. I think it would be difficult. The Centauri are going to be caught between a rock and a hard place because they would probably really admire the Noldor.
But they would feel a little inferior. They wouldn't want to feel inferior to them, though.
Yes, and meanwhile, you also have the Gauld, who are also the ruling type, and they have this means of. I guess we didn't describe them at all. The Gauld are actually I think the actual creature is just a little slug essentially, but they're a parasitic race that they will infect a host body, usually a human, at least on the show.
Yeah.
Maybe they infected other races. I don't
Probably.
know. So basically, they use the host body as their.
Well,
main
see, that's
thing,
going to be dangerous because they could spread.
They could spread.
I feel like in the phase of the Gaul, the Centauri and the Noldor would work together.
It's probably true.
Except the Noldor are very proud.
True.
They're not against help, but they're not going to ask for it.
No, they probably wouldn't. But at the same, I can't. I can't imagine the Centauri doing very well against the Goa'uld.
Not by themselves.
Honestly.
They're just
not by themselves.
They talk more than they succeed.
Yeah, at least at the point
where we're talking about in their history.
In their history, if we were talking from Babylon 5 era.
The sad thing is they might work with Goa'uld if they thought that in the end it would benefit them. I mean, they work with the Keepers.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they would have...
It wouldn't be the first time a parasitic race worked with the Centauri.
Oh, dang. That's a good point. But at the same time, that wasn't entirely willingly.
That's true. But I could see them being co-opted.
I could see the Goa'uld taking advantage of the Centauri.
If they spoke well and promised
the right things, the Centauri could easily be taken in.
And unfortunately, the Noldor may, if they don't suspect subterfuge, I mean, depending at what point they come in and how suspicious they are. Be that at first, they're not really suspicious of many people except the Dark One.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting.
But the Wookiee do not trust people necessarily.
No, I feel like the Wookiees would. I feel like they'd get wind.
They might actually be more proactive
against the Goa'uld.
Yeah.
I could certainly see that. I feel like they would. Their suspicions would be raised high.
You know what?
Earlier,
though? The Fraggles and Noldor are going to love each other.
Okay.
No, because the Fraggles go down and bring gems out from the earth that Noldor can then use to make weapons and crowns and craft. They love smithing and stuff.
It's possible. I mean, Fraggles are very naive, so they would. It's like, ooh, shiny rocks. And
you could just tell them, like, hey, bring us more shiny rocks. And
the thing
they would treat them well. I mean, they're like sprites of the earth or whatever.
It depends on how much they. The Goa'uld were not necessarily benevolent rulers, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I could see the Fraggles just being scared of them if they raise their voices too loud.
Who?
I mean, I could see the Fraggles being scared of the Goa'uld.
Oh, no, I'm saying the Noldor and the Fraggles go.
Oh, I thought you said the Goa'uld.
Oh, I said that. I said by accident. No. Okay. The Noldor.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I can see why you were confused.
Yeah.
If I said that. But then, I tell you what, the elves have some great singing that the Fraggles would really enjoy.
Yeah, they would.
Galadriel could go there, and
I think because of Silmarillion, even some of the movies, we think of elves as being very stoic a lot of times. But if you read some of the early, like Hobbits or Lord of the Rings stuff, they could also be quite merry at times.
I mean, Elrond's house is always full of parties.
Yeah, so I think Fraggles and Noldor could get along.
So yeah, I think we got a nice try. I mean, not that Fraggles didn't help a lot, but between the Noldor and the Wookiees and the Fraggles, you got a pretty strong group of basically earth-friendly, noble party people. and warriors.
Yes, no.
I mean, the Fraggles aren't warriors, but the other two are.
I think it's a strong, happy alliance there.
And I think they could certainly. I just feel the Centauri are going to get taken in, and it'll be a tragic ending. They might just be left over Londo, but.
Man, it kind of breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Now, one group we haven't even hardly touched on here is the Asimov robots.
Oh yeah, I forgot about them.
I'm not sure what part they play in all this.
They're probably on both sides. Well,
now the question is, I wonder if this is something that the Noldor created. I mean, you wouldn't think about the Noldor being like making technology type stuff like this.
They would in this universe.
In this universe, they're very creative. They're very industrious. It's possible they are the ones who created the Asimov robots.
Yeah.
Noldor.
And the thing is, the robots wouldn't fight. They can't fight.
Oh, that's true.
By definition.
Interesting. And they wouldn't be any use to the Goa'uld at all because they can't infect them.
So they would just kind of be. I think the Fraggles might really like running around with them.
maybe they can control them. Like, can you see a little Fraggle
that'd be awesome
running around in a body? They probably like make them dance and like flail their arms around. And
I think that's awesome. I think generally we have a very happy world with a little bit of tragedy on the edges.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, I think throughout the history, the gold try to sneak in through various races. But I think generally they wouldn't succeed.
Yeah, I concur.
Get enough friendship and
I think
alliance, loyalty, a lot of loyalty.
And honestly, probably if this is the Noldor before they go crazy, if they strike up a good friendship with the Wookiees early on, I could see them enhancing their strengths and weaknesses really well, balancing those things out.
Yeah.
So,
Man, I would like to see some sort of fan fiction with Noldor and Wookiees.
or even just some fan art,
Yeah.
That'd be
That'd be awesome.
this is gold right here.
Yeah, go for it, guys. You're the internet.
So, all right. Well, I think that was a lot
That
of
was
fun.
good. That was fun. I enjoyed that. I think the last one is my favorite.
Yeah, I think
So Nazi huts were kind of fun too.
yeah, there's some fun fans.
It's fun like we're playing Smash up here.
And I thought about that. Yeah, it's similar except different.
Yeah. All right, Tim.
That's insightful commentary right there.
That's what you come to hear here at Derailed Trains of Thought.
All right, we should wrap this up though.
Animals are okay.
So, if you want to listen to all our episodes, you can find them at derailedtrainsofthought.blogspot.com.
Listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher. If you enjoy us, please share the love with your friends. Spread on, because you know more people than we do.
Yes, and maybe leave us a review on iTunes.
That'd be very helpful.
Yes, so people see, hey, there are actual people, human beings who listen to this.
And it's not just horrible. Unless a review says it's just horrible, and then we don't want your review.
It's not too helpful.
No.
There. All right, to close this out, I had a tricky time picking out a soundtrack, but I finally wound up with a song, a remix from Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, which I picked for two reasons. One, I think that game has some political undertones with the espionage in it. Two, this remix called Electric Gear Solid. Looking at the comments, it had some debates from the judges about whether it had actually done much of whether it was a fresh take on the source material enough, because it does sound very similar to the original song. But it wound up, they thought the instrumentation was good enough, they went ahead and approved it. So with that, debates.
There you go.
Politics. There you go.
Yep.
Hope you enjoy it.
Well, we need to say goodbye to all our people.
We do need to say goodbye to all our peoples.
All right, guys.
And we need to get out of here. Too.
I'm not comfortable here. Let's go.
This is one of the more dangerous places.
If we leave the towers, there's some nice inns, some nice Ogier built architecture to look at.
Okay,
it's really good.
I'll let you lead the way. I feel like you know your way around.
I know this way pretty well. Yeah, it's been a while, but I got it.
Okay, good. Good to hear.
But anyways, this has been Nick.
And this is Tim.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.